Why I Stopped Wasting Food. My husband held up the remains of his meal. "This is just soggy bread. No one's going to eat it," he said. The soggy bread was once a shrimp po' boy sandwich. The restaurant hadn't added nearly enough shrimp, which left us with the thick ends of sauce-smeared bread, sprinkled with relish and lettuce shards. I lowered my hand, which was raised to ask the waitress for a takeout box. "What's wrong with it?" I asked. "Look at it," Andrew said, turning a piece over in case I needed a better view. It was our first time going to a restaurant since I had announced we would stop wasting food the week before. He had been on board when we were at home, but keeping unwanted food from restaurants was too much. "You said you were going to support me," I answered. "No food waste ever, even at restaurants." "Tara-Lynn, this is gross." "How do you figure? You ate most of that bread 5 seconds ago. It wasn't gross then. Plus, if I gave you a bowl of shrimp right now, you'd put it on that bread and eat it happily." His shoulders sank in defeat. "You seriously want to take this home?" I folded my arms firmly. "It doesn't pass the hungry kid test." He frowned because that was the end of the argument. With his head lowered in shame, he asked our waitress for a takeout container so we could keep 8 pieces of po' boy bread, sans shrimp. "It'll be interesting to see what you do with that," he said. To be fair to my husband, when I told him I wouldn't waste food anymore, it took him a while to understand what counted as food and what counted as waste. He saw me pick onions off my hamburger once and wondered if that was all right since onions are technically food. A lot of my friends felt the same way. When I announced my new lifestyle on social media, they bombarded me with questions. "What about orange peels?" they asked. "Potato peels. You can eat dandelion leaves, you know." They sent me recipes for banana peel cake and orange pulp muffins. I was touched by their support, but something felt off. It didn't make sense to bake a banana peel cake every time I wanted a banana. By the way, never make a vegan pulled pork sandwich out of banana peels, no matter how much a blog article insists it's good. It tastes just as awful as it sounds. My husband and friends made an interesting point. If throwing away onion slices and orange pulp wasn't wrong, what was wrong? I came up with the hungry kid test. Imagine you want to throw out some food. To one side of you is a garbage can, and to the other side there's a hungry kid. If you would put your food in the trash can with a hungry child watching, throwing it out is okay. For instance, if a kid asked me for some food and I had a banana peel in my hand, I wouldn't hand it to him. I would say, "Sure, just let me throw away this banana peel first." If you would give the food to the child, throwing it out counts as waste. I would never hand a hungry child slivers of raw onion. Another example. Once when I was eating enchiladas, the skin on the peppers was too thick to chew. I picked them out until there was a pile of pepper peels on my plate. I'll say that 5 times fast. If a kid had asked for those skins, I would have said, "No, sweetheart, let me get you something else." If a kid had asked to eat the last bite of my enchilada, I would have said, "Of course you can." You get the idea. I wouldn't throw out po' boy sandwich ends with a hungry kid watching me. Ergo, I had to take it home and figure out what to do with it. The po' boy challenge almost stumped me. I would have eaten the bread the way it was if I absolutely had to, but maybe I could take the bread from being just edible to being desirable. It needed to be toasted so it was no longer soggy. While it sat in the toaster oven, I scrounged around my kitchen until I had the idea to caramelize cheddar cheese on the bread. Then I topped it with dollops of mayo and relish tuna fish. It was really good. The po' boy sauce on the bread paired well with the cheese and tuna. Plus, I thought the shape of my mini sandwiches was fun. After my creation was complete, I arranged the pieces on a plate and presented them to Andrew. In my best waitress voice, I said, "Would you care for some open-faced tuna melt sliders?" We laughed until we cried. Not too long ago, I didn't think twice about throwing away food. Granted, I would frown on people who tossed food that was perfectly good. There are starving children in Africa, after all. I would do the much more responsible thing and leave my leftovers in the fridge to rot. Back then, I went on huge grocery trips. There wouldn't be enough room in the fridge for what I had bought, so I'd take everything out that was no longer edible. A stack of Tupperware containers would accumulate on my counter, sometimes 2 or 3 stacks. I'd plop all the rotten food in a garbage bag, which would be very heavy, and drag the bag outside as a trail of putrid fluid drizzled behind me. Then I'd mop the floor. Well, I'd at least mop up the putrid fluid. I didn't waste food. We ate leftovers, after all. Plus, I judged wasteful people with righteous indignation. You can't be judgmental if you're guilty of the same thing, right? Despite my denial about our waste, and most of us are in the same denial, I knew what I was doing wasn't okay. I knew this because of the ghost baby. Hopefully this doesn't make me sound too crazy, though after hearing the title of this book, perhaps that ship has sailed. I read once that most American families throw away enough food to feed an additional family member. This altered my attitude about food. Whenever I dumped out container after container of leftovers, I imagined the ghost of a fifth member of our family. He was a hungry African child like you see in the news, and he'd be watching me, frowning at me. I threw away food so often that my kitchen felt haunted. Yet, I ignored my ghost baby and continued to waste stacks of food, year after year after year. Then, on April 2017, a news article came into my life and changed everything.